Okay, well, I guess we're 45 minutes late and I'm just starting. So, and I know folks probably want to get to the interactive part, so I'm going to move very quickly and let this be 5 minutes or less. I'm Gary Rush. I'm with Angie's List, and I'm the Vice President of Technology there, so I'm delighted to have the chance to chat here today. I have a perspective that's, I think, slightly different from the prior presenters because we're a company that's at the cusp of a decision to do this, where I think the other folks that have spoken today, they're already heavily vested in the technology. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about what are some of the things that we look at and we need as we go through the process of making a decision to employ this technology. And we truly will make that decision, I think, here in the next 90 to 120 days. So Angie's List is in the business of helping consumers make better purchasing decisions. And we do that through shared information and buying power. Our members share reviews on all kinds of consumer processes, service providers, plumbers, carpenters, as well as healthcare providers. And through their shared buying power, we're able to offer them a lot of deals and discounts with highly rated service providers. So that's the business that we're in. And we have deployed really social publishing features up to this point, not really social identity. On the social publishing side, I think it's important to know our demographic is a very high-end demographic. It's 100,000 plus family income. They're typically 50 years old on average. And so they're a little bit slower getting to the social side of things than some other demographics. So some of the things that we have found is that our social publishing features are pretty lightly used in that demographic. They're more likely to use them from providers like categories like dog walkers or housekeepers than a roofer. You know, I'm not going to be all that excited to tell all my friends that I used a plumber today, and here's who the plumber is. But I might want to talk about the housekeeper I found that's fantastic. So we see some trends like that. But overall, the demand to publish from this demographic is pretty light. Now, one of the things that we're seeing is that as we get into the deal space, sort of Groupon-like deals from highly rated service providers, people are a lot more excited to share that information. They want to tell about the great deal that they got, and they want to share that with their friends. So basically, today, when folks are looking at an Angie's List review, they can choose to share it on Facebook, and when they do, it's posted to their news feed. And like I said, we don't see a lot of uptick on that. We actually get about 100 times more uptick for people that want to email a review to a friend than actually want to go ahead and post it. So it's a really high difference between those two technologies today. We do think, based on the feedback we've gotten, that's going to change in the whole deal space. So what are some of the things that we're looking at? Well, we've got to have seamless interaction with the join funnel. That's been talked about here today. There's actually a lot of talk about security. And for us, our marketing people are all about, we just don't want there to be any inhibitor to getting them past the first step in our join funnel. We have tested the dickens out of that thing. And if the distraction of even having to make a choice adds to that friction, then that's going to be an issue. If we lose conversion due to can't remember credentials, that's going to have to get overcome by general uplift that we get. So we will test the dickens out of it. We could spend a lot of time implementing this and then throw it out. I guarantee they'd throw it out in a minute. There needs to be a constant API. You know, one of the things that I did was I went and I searched through some of the blogs to see what people were saying about OpenId, and there was a group of discussions about API changes that occurred, and one guy told this story of about how the API changed, and he found it at 5 in the morning and had to slave away to get it fixed. And so, we haven't really talked a lot about that here today, but I hope that some of the discussion, maybe dealing with those issues, is something that we're going to look at as we make the decision here over the next 90 days or so. the system has to be always up. There's been some mention about that's assumed. We don't assume it. And in fact, we probably go with an aggregator, but now we're adding two levels. The aggregator's got to be up, and then the providers behind them got to be up. And anytime you add multi-level, I don't care if they're both at 5 nines, the result of those two isn't at 5 nines anymore. And so we're thinking a heck of a lot about that. And then this is just one of many federated providers that we use. So that's a big issue for us. And we absolutely don't assume it. Easy account maintenance. angieslist has about 500 employees today, and I think probably 60 of them are in a call center dealing with customer requirements. And I think the first or second most common request is I can't remember my password. So that has to be, I'm going to have hard stats about how companies are dealing with that when I move in to present this as an option to those folks. And the more information I can get, the better. So there's all kinds of issues there that they run into in the call center all the time. And some of those were discussed today. I think others were not discussed as clearly. You know, in terms of social publishing control, social has its limits. So we've got to be a little careful with what we're doing there. I use the example of psychiatrists. You know, so we set up this feed and people are looking at a plumber, they bought this fantastic deal, and the next thing we see is they went and looked at 6 psychiatrists today. That's probably not the kind of thing that they want to publish. And so, so we're particularly sensitive to those kinds of things. The more information that we can get is better. A missing email address is a big problem for us. It would take, we'd have to prompt for it and get it in any event. We're just not going to let people through without that piece of data. We talked today about push notification or about notification of updates. The example given was somebody comes back to the site and they log in again, so we get an update on a refresh of all their information. But you know, that consumer is probably going to assume that when they go update their information on Facebook, since they created their account on our site using their Facebook ID, that we have access to that information right away. And you know, there's just a lot of consumer perceptions that we're going to have to deal with on this. Another issue is convincing the user who doesn't understand what's going on that we're not gaining access to their credentials when they accept the ID. I mean, I would bet you a huge percentage of these people have this fear that we're recording that user ID and password and suddenly can use it to go in and grab everything we want off their account. So maybe over time that'll become less and less of an issue, but I think today it's still a big issue. And then the final thing is, it's certainly important to us, is a way out. How do we get a friendly divorce if we commit to this standard, we move down the path? One of the problems is to even test it, you have to start accepting it, and then you've got a basket of users whose accounts are really associated to their Facebook account or their Twitter account. And then if you decide to bail, how do you go and undo that in a way that doesn't leave you sort of stranded? Like once you take the first step, once you do the first step, once you do the first test, you're done. And I didn't really hear people talking too much about that today. So those are the kinds of things that are important to us, and you know, I look forward to seeing how things evolve and how some of those are addressed. So, yeah.
So to your last point, the friendly divorce.
Yeah.
I think without calling it that, Eric talked about that a little bit in the value of having a verified email address. The ultimate fallback is being able to contact the user and say, you know, your angieslist account is, you can't get to it right now, but you can get to it by clicking through this link. It's not a great user experience, but it's far better than losing the account. You have to have this alternate credential for the user.
Yeah, I just wonder how many folks actually, you know, have people create an internal account at the same time that they record the external credentials. That would also get you a friendly divorce, but at the cost of a fair amount of friction. And,
Some software customers actually do, and actually that kind of goes against what Eric was proposing earlier, that it's better if you have a Gmail account, you register with a Gmail account, you might as well use Gmail to authenticate. So you have to weigh that fine balance. A lot of customers do. It's like, would you then like to create a local password on the site? So that essentially gives them not only a social method of authentication, but also a traditional method of authentication in addition to the social.
So a lot of them ask, would you like to, as opposed to saying, please create now an internal password. Or,
And there are some examples. Some customers tend to do it, some
yeah.
I've also seen at least one provider that will email you the information that you used to log in with. So it'll be like you logged in with Google, and next time you come back, you'll make sure to click that button again. So little hints like that can actually help users a lot. Because they'll email for their password, right? And then they'll find an email and say, oh, that's right, I got to use whatever button.
Yeah, I think those are some great best practices. We want to make sure we can find access to all that. Yeah.
So I actually, it's interesting you bring up these things. I did want to give you a completely different perspective. In fact, you feel that, so you're asking for first name, last name, email address, and password, right? And let's say, for example, the user forgets his password. The way for him to recover that account is most likely you will send a link to his alternate email address. So you are already fully dependent on the email provider for the user to actually log into your ID or to your account. There is no other way customer care can say, hey, this is my name and this is my zip code, you will let me into that account. So actually, so that's part, if you start to think about it, that makes it much easier that the email verification process is where you'll probably lose a lot more customers than the one Eric was talking about, where you may actually get invalid data. And I think that all the piece of data is available through pretty much one click. So in the best flows which are out there right now, you click on it and the user is logged into the provider side and you say yes, and you essentially get a verified email address and you are done. So my question would be, one thing is like how many people who come to the website, what is the conversion rate right now? And when you actually deploy something else, you may be surprised. Depending on what other pieces are you asking for? Given that you are asking very little information, which is 100% available from the OpenID providers, you may actually see a better conversion rate.
Yeah, but there's one. I think there's one flaw in, at least relative to our site, in your comparison. Because I think most of it is accurate. But when a first-time user comes to our site, they give us their email address. They type in if they're a brand new user, and that's a new email address, and they type in their password, we take it. We take it, right? This is our marketing funnel. They're in, and if it's not, there is no wrong one that they can type at that point in time.
But if they gave you a wrong email address and they forgot their password, they are out. They basically are no longer your user, right? There's no way for them to recover. And most of the people actually, very first time when they create an account, they are trying to test out the service. They give you bogus information, and most likely they create a password which they forget like the next day, or the couple of days later when they come back to the service. So there is, again, I think all these numbers, when we start to look at them, and what Eric has been looking at is they start to look wrong in the sense that you may lose customers and other things, but there is a lot more deep thinking has to be involved, just like the abuse part of it. You may get a lot of customers right now, which may be mostly abused, but then by actually accepting a valid ID which has been used and other things, you may actually get better quality customers. And even though the number is smaller, so all I'm saying is I think those numbers have not been published, and we have been actually doing a lot of study at Yahoo, and the numbers, again, it's hard to share the details and the data and other things because
funny enough, the better the stats are, the harder it is to get internal permission to size them. But I will say in Google's case, like we also today allow people to sign up by just giving us an email address and password. They don't have to verify it.
right.
We have found that switching this alternative approach is overall getting us a significant boost in quote-unquote good users. It is also cut by 80% our set of people who call in and need help fixing their, like basically they forgot their password because we're not getting wrong emails. Like people, mistyping their emails. So
The most exciting stat I heard today was a guy from Sears that talked about the 300% boost in registration. I think it was 3x multiple on their registration. I mean, I wrote that number down. I was hoping we'd see some more stats like that.
I guess, unfortunately, from at I can say for Yahoo, the numbers are not necessarily meaningful because of the amount of views we see. So I can actually tell you if you want the registrations to be 2x tomorrow, I can do it. It will be done. And actually it can be 4x for this. So that makes it very, very hard to compare the numbers. And I think that's part of the reason maybe you were seeing the AOL numbers might.
We're also a little weird. We have like 2 billion users already signed up for the start. People to sign up.
Right.
Yeah, triple.
But I think the main part I was trying to bring up is that if you are using an email address for recovery, you are already dependent on the service provider. And having a verified email address actually gets you much, much better quality users. You're not really abandon your account. So you may see your sign up rate go down, but it's possible that those users, when they come back 3 months later, 2 months later, they will still be able to log into your website. And that kind of analysis takes much longer and much more time consuming. That actually over the long period of time, you actually have better customers and more customers, and they are more engaged, and they can easily come back to you. And again, I don't have a data to prove it, but something to think about.
I hope in a year maybe we'll have some data to share that shows that. So I ran over my 5 minutes, but hopefully it launched the discussion.
No, this is exactly the kind of conversation we wanted to have, so.
Any other questions?
I wanted to speak to your point of not being able to remember which provider they last logged in. So there's this concept of return experience. Of course, if they haven't come to your site in like 6 months and then they don't remember that they solve that problem. But if they're frequent visitors, but they don't remember that what is the identity provider they last logged in with. We have solutions for that, and I think Eric spoke about the return experience bit earlier today as well. But that's one way to prompt your users to say, hey, you logged in last time with this ID. So please try to.
Great. I think that's a great solution. Okay.